Style is a difficult thing to define. I would know, I still haven't figured it out. However, I believe it's extremely easy to identify in someone or something. I've been playing Ghost of Tsushima, and it's got me thinking about style a lot. This is a game that understands its own style and executes it perfectly, drawing inspiration from classic samurai films, especially invoking the work of Akira Kurosawa. But beyond any intentional homage, the game simply looks incredible. You can just be riding from place to place, and the game will make you stop and take it in. The way light stretches through the trees in the morning, the way it slices through the fog. Really, light is a vital part of it, the way it falls or fills a space, and the absence of it as well. The white moonlight and deep shadows are just as important. Beyond that, the game's style of combat prioritizes a flawless flow, at least when you're doing it right. Otherwise, you get to play your part in a historical comedy called How Jin Sakai Learned to Fly. But when it's done right, the game really sells this fantasy of the samurai's skill, deflecting and redirecting blows, dancing just out of reach. Slashes carry both speed and weight, and elicit a satisfying blood splatter, clean arcs of red-tinted life strewn across the ground. Another hallmark of samurai cinema, although Sushi doesn't take it to the level of Sekiro. Really quickly hopping in during the edit with a bit of trivia. This is commonly cited as being due to an error. It isn't. Kurosawa intended for the bloodshed as an experiment. I knew this going in, but I don't think I made it very clear. It's also not present in a lot of his other films. Other filmmakers emulated it from Sandro, causing its ubiquity in the genre. But enough about purely visual, let's talk about how style can serve out stories. Style over substance, referring to a creation that prioritizes looking good over being good. But that doesn't mean you should take its opposite, substance without style, as a good thing either. Really, you need a balance in creative works. Substance without style is dull but fulfilling, style without substance is flashy but meaningless. And style doesn't have to be all awesome effects and eye-catching action. A classic like Columbo doesn't worry itself with pomp and flash, instead it slow burns a thick intellectual tone. Capped, of course, with the all-important parlor room reveal, where the murderer finally learns they've been trapped. If that's not a hallmark of detective style, what is? Substance informs style. In the Arkham series, we experience a pulpy, serious Batman story, and the games coat themselves in dark streets, overcast skies, and pouring rain to sell it. Ghost of Tsushima is a deeply depressing game, struggling to find scraps of hope in a world on the brink of defeat. Every stretch of gorgeous wilderness hides scattered ranks of Mongols and bandits, dead bodies and cowering locals. Everyone you care about is dead. All your best allies are dead. The one man who might be able to fix this is captured. And the best you can muster is a handful of starving Ronin, an old archery master who is kind of a jackass and the last surviving member of a clan who was brutally slaughtered. Vengeance, grief, and crushing odds define this game. Thus, the stunning countryside becomes melancholy, the last peaceful remnants of a home that has been almost entirely crushed. When you finally move to save your uncle, the bulk of your forces never arrive. Fighting or sneaking through, you eventually come across your ally, harboring an old grudge and having been turned against you. A promised bounty might be his one chance of keeping the Straw Hat Ronin from starving to death. You draw blades, ankle deep in a pond, floating petals and a dozen paper lamps like motes of light on the black sheen of water, blood-red leaves rustling overhead. You are the Ghost of Tsushima, forced to sacrifice your honor and ideals for the good of everyone who remains. A lone rock for the waves of Mongols to break themselves against. Helldivers 2, when it's not being leveraged in an idiotic scheme by its moronic publisher, is a game that follows a completely different school of style. You are not important. You are not special. You are one of 1,000 disposable bastards given just enough training to walk in the right direction and then flash frozen and filed away. When the time comes, you get shot into the ground at high speed and fight whatever they point you at. Helldivers does not want to evoke the lone samurai, skillfully parrying a dozen blades and carving apart his enemies. Helldivers draws its inspiration from war films, specifically the cult classic Starship Troopers. It aligns itself with the film as a parody of the propaganda-esque glut of war movies, glorifying pointless death and suffering as noble and empowering, a way in which we preserve our supposed superiority. So everything explodes, or turns into a spray of green guts. Mud and blood and oil splatter the screen. Gunships rain fire around you. Energy bolts rip by in overwhelming waves. When the numbers are against you, it's not an empowering dance of blades, it's a desperate hail of bullets and buckshot. You either crawl out on the brink of death, get torn apart, or make a glorious last stand. That's an interesting term, isn't it? Glorious. What's glorious about this? The defiance of the odds? You're nothing in this world. Here you are, on the surface of some distant planet, getting stomped into the mud for a war that Super Earth objectively caused and is now trying to portray as a justified defense. When the mission ends, the game shows you just how little you mattered, as a liberation percentage ticks up by 0.0000002%. The intention informs the style, which informs the tone. It's all one symbiotic circle. But it's not just in visual mediums. Redwall is a series of 22 novels written by British novelist Brian Jacques. Jacques. These books are great, excellent fantasy stories that tell tales of talking animals beating the odds, and they invoke a very unique style of their own. Brian Jacques initially wrote Redwall for children at Royal Wavertree School for the Blind in Liverpool. Consequently, the stories are full of rich, lush descriptions of their settings, and especially their food. Brother Alf remarked that Friar Hugo had excelled himself, as course after course was brought to the table. Tender freshwater shrimp garnished with cream and rose leaves, deviled barley pearls and acorn puree, apples and carrot chews, marinated cabbage stalks steeped in creamed white turnip with nutmeg. A chorus of oohs and ahs greeted the arrival of 6 mice pushing a big trolley. It was the grayling. Wreaths of aromatic steam drifted around Cavern Hole. The fish had been baked to perfection. Friar Hugo entered, with a slight swagger added to his ungainly waddle. He swept off his chef's cap with his tail and announced in a somewhat pompous squeak, "Grayling a la Redwall." Polite but eager applause rippled round as Hugo sliced the fish and placed the first steaming portion onto a platter. It's a plethora of descriptions like these that give Redwall its homely, warm feeling. Redwall wants to tell a story about Redwall Abbey, a home for animals of many varieties where they are safe and comfortable. So it utilizes these rich descriptions to invoke a warm atmosphere, which also helps to emphasize the bleakness or danger present outside the Abbey. In our stories too, style and substance should feed into each other. Writing Pound Cake and Circumstances, a modern setting fantasy story I've been working on and have not shut up about, I'm doing my best to invoke grandiose descriptions as a way of contrasting the largely grounded struggles of my main cast. One massive, echoing boom silenced everything. The trio whipped around and came face to massive face with the form of a living colossus, its ancient form rising higher and higher from below the trees. One long neck stretched up, rising to don a crown of clouds as legs like tree trunks reached down to meet the earth and shattered stone cascaded off its pitch-black form. A long, whip-like tail swept across the ground, uprooting 100 trees in the motion. The sky turned dark. Clouds rolled in faster than any they had seen before, thunder rumbling. The breeze turned to a gale, but no rain came. A single, glorious bolt of lightning split the sky in half, meeting the crest on the creature's head, its body like the endless void lit up with a blood-red bioluminescence, pinprick red eyes gazing down at the insignificant mortals it found at its feet. How well that works? Well, it's up to you. That incredible art you saw at the end was done by my friend Matchacatta. She's an absolutely incredible artist. She works at a speed I have never seen before while maintaining this incredible quality. Links to all of her stuff is in the description. Please go check her out. I know it's a bit unorthodox to quote your own writing in this style of video, but I want to use a personal example from my work to encourage others. I think it's a bit too easy to view books as monoliths. Don't forget that we're just as capable of creating worthwhile works. I mean, if my dumbass can do it, certainly you can as well. If you'd like to read Pound Cake and Circumstances, links are in the description.